Uh, I have like a list here of problem cards given me by George here, but I'm just gonna get like a group of them, and I'm just gonna give the easiest one. I think all the memory options, like the zero cost ones, very similar to Hammer Spark, just get them out of here already. Just get them out of here. They should have been hit when Hammer Spark got hit. Jack Raid, Gravity Crush, and I think those are the only other two that are really kind of problematic. The other ones are just they're not even used. So I think those should just get out of the way already, because it's in this day and age with what I have to call memory inflation, where one memory nowadays gets you a lot more than back in like BT4, BT5. The constant memory gains off multiple times, like that's just way too much. I think just limiting them to one is just perfectly fine for like that one turn you're gonna try to go for a game and extend. So yeah, those are my picks. The
When you
Jack
say
Raid,
out of here, do you mean to 0 or to 1?
I'll say to one. I'll say to one. Keep them to one. So
Okay,
that's Jack Raid, Blinding Ray, and Gravity Crush. Those three.
absolutely.
Yeah. Gotcha. Because like the
Mm.
whole purple hybrid and like the looping and stuff like that, right? Okay.
That's
So
fair.
Mm.
That's
let
fair.
me bring this up.
So
Let me bring this up. I don't play purple hybrids, but I play into it enough where I can see like where their strengths are. So do you think hitting both Jack Raid and Matt at the same time will kill the deck, or do you think it'll just slow it down enough? What do you think?
I think it's definitely a kill shot. Like I have a very different opinion where so just when it comes to ban lists in general, I think like from a design standpoint, Bandai wants to one balance their game, right? We're not actually trying to kill decks and put them like in the dirt 5 feet under, which is what a lot of Digimon players don't understand. We're trying to like keep that deck so that it's not like overpowering all the other decks. Like they constantly say that when they drop ban lists, right? They're like, "Hey, this was, over the meta way too much," or this was not our intention for everybody 90% to be playing, purple hybrid into this format. We want to promote creative deck building. We want to promote different ways of strategies in order to like compete with other people and beat other people, and that's how you get like the best players, right? Because you're able to the best players are able to sit down with their own strategy and kind of figure out everything that they can do to fight the meta, right? And so for me, when it comes to like, I'll say specifically Blinding Ray and Gravity Crush, I think are fine. I think they can stay. The reason why I'm saying that is because the decks that make use of, well, okay, let's start with Gravity Crush, right? We'll go one card by one card. Gravity Crush for me, the only deck, and correct me if I'm wrong, that really makes value of that card is Red Hybrid.
Yeah.
Red Hybrid only really uses it. No, you disagree, Danny? I mean, maybe Dorbic. Um, j- which deck are you thinking about? Oh, I mean, okay, so old cross that was like Merva like loop cross is like yeah, but like most of the new cross players are either playing the EX6 version, the Shoutmon EX6 version, the one that we just got, or they're playing I don't know, I haven't seen any Merva cross like recently. And I feel like that's the only version that like they run Blinding Ray and Jack Ray, or sorry, Blinding Ray and Gravity Crush so that they can like drop their Merva and like try to do their rush turn, but like that doesn't even work against most of the decks of like today's age. Like there was a time where like it really stomped, but I don't think, I mean correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen it like in all the playtesting that I've done this format, but I think that the main deck, like for me, just of my opinion, that uses Gravity Crush is going to be Red Hybrid. Red Hybrid kind of uses it to flush out their kill turn, right? Because in most scenarios, if and that's like a thing for me of like if we're talking all skilled players, right? The most skilled players are going to use their Gravity Crush well, right? And we're talking about any card being used well. When we're talking about it being abused and stuff like that. I think that I've seen a lot of people use Gravity Crush, and if they fail, that remaining turn, that turn after, they're dead because of all the memory that they gave their opponent from Gravity Crush. So they're like, ah, man, I miscalculated, and now I can't kill you. Man, go to 7, go to 5. For most decks, like into red hybrid, like you can stomp them with that because they have no security bombs, no real like defense of any kind. Like if you can go through their security or prevent them from winning on the back turn, you know, by suspending their tamers, killing their tamers. There's like a whole bunch of tamer hate in the game right now, I feel. So except for purple hybrid, where you know they can recur their tamers and kind of just like even the AG build of purple hybrid, where they can like use Balmons as the low end, and then like every turn push out a Balmon, BT14 Balmon, and like shove an AG from trash. Like that kind of stuff allows you to like digivolve over your tamers and then be like, hey, at the end of turn, D-Mind Link. So anything that was like quartz, like your board gets quartz and stuff like that, you're able to like bring your tamers back to a standing position. Like red hybrid can't do that. They get quartzed with like 7 tamers on board. Hey, shake my hand. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like there's not really much that they can do besides make an emperor that's going to be suspended and then try to kill quartz. So I think personally that gravity crush can stay. I think blinding ray. The only reason why I would have a like I won't say a problem because I don't really play any decks that rely on gravity or blinding ray myself. But obviously the deck that abuses that the most is Magna, right? And so if we're trying to hit a card to fix one deck, we don't want to take away a resource tool for all the other decks that could use it. So for example, a deck that I feel like needs blinding ray to stay relevant or even like stay fighting back is the new Pulsemon deck with Kazuchi and stuff like that. Like their combo with Bautmon. I feel like that's like a very balanced combo that keeps them, you know, in pace with all the other decks. Like being able to go into their level 5, have their Leon underneath there, blinding ray, gain 2 memory, be able to digivolve for free. Like without that, a lot of my strongest decks like just pummel Pulsemon. And there's not much they can do because the deck is not that offensive to begin with. So they kind of need that oomph, like to be able to like hold them together. They also really don't have blast DNA because a lot of the Pulsemon centric decks don't run Fenrir. There are like a couple that do, maybe like 20%, maybe. But a lot of them don't run, you know, Takami Kazuchi Ace because they're not going to be able to DNA, blast DNA, right? Yeah, and then Jack Raid, I definitely could see Jack Raid going to 1 without Matt going to 1. Reason why is because I said before, I think that Jack Raid and Matt going to 1 would be killer. I think it would stomp Purple Hybrid out. Especially going into 20, there are a lot of decks that like just don't care about Purple Hybrid. And it sounds crazy, but like Royal Knights is just like they eat for free if you hit Jack Raid and Matt. Royal Knights eat for free, Jessamon eats for free because they make so many bodies and they're all immune to Digimon effects. So what can Velgar do? You know, you block with all the Digimon that have blocker, you block Velgar. They're like end of attack, kill myself. Cool, just kill yourself. Make another one. Swing, block, kill yourself. You're not doing anything to my board. So it's like there's stuff that like a lot of stuff that came out in 20 that like they just don't care about. Even Exa is like I would say one of not the stronger decks of 20, and even Exa like performs well into Purple Hybrid. So I think like our hits, so to speak, definitely differ from like the pre-Nats versions of us speaking. You know what I'm saying? Because like pre-Nats versions of us, like if we would have talked about like hits before Nats, I'd have been like, yeah, sure, Jack Ray to 1, Mirage to 1. We didn't have Medieval at that point. A lot of people, I bet there are like a lot of people in Digimon that will just like complain about cards just for the sake of like, I don't like that card, right? So it's like, you know, it's like, oh man, like I play Crossheart. I think it's unfair that every time I play a card, they have Medieval on board. My card just gets popped. Like that's not fair. And it's like, but you know, there's other decks that like play Medieval in there, and that's the only way that they can keep up with like Imperial from stomping them into the ground, you know, or it's like an active card that checks one of the strongest decks in the game, which is Imperial. So before Imperial or before Medieval, it was kind of like if you're sitting across the table from Imperial and you swing with a rookie and they hit a Davis Ken out of security, you could just die. It's like in no way is that fair. And I would have said like Davis Ken go to 1 too, pre-Nats. Because that card just it affords a lot of like aggro, a lot of tempo, a lot of speed. Like I've seen Imperial players go from having an empty board with no way of coming back to like swing out on security. All right, Davis Ken, we back in there, boys. I'm gonna win next turn. Like, and it's like your opponent really can't do anything unless they can play Crimson Blaze or play something else along those lines or medieval in this case. But before they had medieval, it was like really nothing. You guys want to keep going down the list that George has?
Well, I have one question for George as the
Okay.
resident purple hybrid expert here. What are your thoughts on hitting both Jack Raid and Matt for purple hybrid? Do you think it's gonna kill the deck, or do you think you still have enough tools to have some form of recursion?
Okay. So here's my humble opinion on the two-hit Jack Ray Matt Ishida two-piece combo. I do not agree. Matt Ishida deserves to stay in the game, not being hit, only because of the fact that yes, it helps reoccur your resources, but the only thing right now that Matt Ishida truly wants to add back is the problem card, which is Jack Raid. So Jack Raid getting limited already solves the Matt Ishida issue. Matt Ishida, all it's gonna do is keep reoccurring your Dustmons. But there's already a lot of cards in the game that can also reoccur your Dustmons. You have Team X-Antibody, you have the red-blue option. You have a ton of other resources that reoccurs your hybrids back to your hand. So yes, it may seem that Matt Ishida is an issue, but it's only an issue because it adds back the true issue, which is Jack Raid. So I think Jack Raid being limited to one is the correct answer, and having multiple in your hand could go into, and if you're already in a super late game scenario, because I personally still play the Merva version of Purple Hybrid because I believe being able to mill your opponent out quicker with Mervamon is just insane. There are games, so many games actually, that my opponent has 20 cards in deck and I mill them out that same turn. So it
Yep.
just it's and that is only because of the fact that Jack Raid is still legal at 4. Not because of Matt Ishida. Well, Matt Ishida does help, but the problem, Jack Raid. So Jack Raid
I
deserves to
agree
go
with that
down.
100%. I played like probably just because I keep data with all my games per format. I probably played like literally not joking like 400 games with Purple Hybrid like before in the Nats format. And so what George is talking about is very correct. Like I've had so many people at locals, even like at Nats, and I'm like cards in deck. They're like, oh, there's no point in me giving you cards in deck. You can't deck me out this turn. I'm like cards in deck. They're like 25. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna kill you. Like I'm it's just like I know like based off of looking at my hand like okay I got 3 or 4 Jack Raids, I got 2 Dusts, 1 Merva or 2 Mervas that I can like recur, or I have like a calling and a Merva. It's over for you. So it's just like that. I agree. And also if we're thinking about tamers, right? If we were to hit Matt just because it brings back Dusk, like they have Koichi, new Koichi. Like you
Yeah.
just did evolve Dusk over Koichi, and that itself is a constant loop. Like you
Correct.
swing with the Koichi under, you add Dusk, it kills itself. You did evolve with Koichi, attacks, get Dusk.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like hitting it just because. And I also think going back to what I was saying about taking things away from like decks that if there's only a deck that abuses a card, I don't necessarily think that card should get hit because there's a lot of other decks that are trying to come up into the stronger tiers or formats that might need that card. So that's why the like choice restrictions exist, right? It's why like when we hit Kyosayo and Keenan and all of that stuff for like the loop that like refunds your turn back to you and just skips your opponent's turn. Like there's a reason that they just didn't hit Keenan to 1 and like the 3-cost tamer to 1 and all that kind of stuff because regular Galaxy uses that, or Ravemon uses Keenan, or there's other creative decks like the Puppetmon deck or whatever that use Keenan to be able to control your opponent, add memory on their turn, and they need tools like that in order to keep them in the game. So in our attempts to hit all the strong decks, we don't want to just wipe out all of the mid-tier decks as well that kind of need that to survive. Because if it's a strong card for the strongest deck, it's also a strong card for the mid-tier decks as well.
Right. So do you guys want to now move on from Jack Raid, Purple Hybrid shenanigans to some other cards we think we might want to get hit?
For sure.
All right, so Danny,
Uh,
you pick a card.
yeah. Heavily.
Okay.
Is it worth discussing restrictions, or ratas over restrictions? Do you guys think it's worth talking about that?
I don't think so because it's very rare. Yeah, I think it's very rare that like Bandai's gonna actually errata a card. Like people, no offense, can't read cards as it is. Like so, being able to be like, hey, Mirage doesn't do that anymore. My opponent's gonna be like, what are you talking about? I've been using this card for, however many. It's like, okay, well, it doesn't do that anymore. Like you wanna look it up now, like in the middle of a tournament. It's like that's gonna create too many issues. So I think that generally Bandai stays away from like completely changing text on a card unless that text was already wrong and they're errating to fix a text that was already correct or already incorrect as far as
That's
because they choose to pander mostly to the Japanese text. So even if we have a card that seems like it's worded correct and they have a card that's worded and it seems incorrect, they're going to fix our version to match the Japanese version every time.
all right.
um
So restrict Mirage. Why would we restrict Mirage?
It's too oppressive of a card for blue. But yeah, it's not many blue decks are playing Mirage. More blue decks are playing Hexablau over Mirage because I believe Hexablau is more of an issue because it creates uh, a scenario where your opponent cannot play the game compared to Mirage, where yes, it may skip turn and yes, it may hinder your opponent, but it doesn't stop them from completely playing the game as Hexablau does. So I believe the more problem card would be Hexablau over Mirage, because simply if you restrict or ban Mirage as a whole, all they do is increase their Hexablock count to 3 to 4, and they just become a top end Hexablock deck.
Now
And
I
then
do think as well that like Mirage itself, the only reason why I don't think that Mirage should get hit is the same argument I was going back to before of us like getting all these new 20 cards, right? Like think about all the strongest decks in the game, or like I'll just mention a few just off rip. Purple Hybrid rarely cares about Mirage. I make a Dusk, I change their level 4 that's on board so they can't Zudo. I swing, I kill their level 4, I kill Mirage. So many Mirage players just like fell to me like that. Like people
yep.
think that that's like a bad matchup. It's not a bad matchup at all for Purple Hybrid. They deal with it very easily.
Hmm.
Fenrir, which brings to my focus like my number one hit card, BT14 Balmon. Once you BT14 Balmon and you start discarding and you start digivolving, it doesn't matter how much memory you gain because the Mirage player is not the turn player. They won't get their memory effect until you're completely done with everything, which means that when you talk it with Takamikazuchi to kill the Mirage, they won't even gain the memory. So you can like literally digivolve to your level 4, drop a card, draw a card, which will trigger Mirage, but that also triggers BT14 Balmon. Cool, I get priority over you, Sol Luga. Discard 2, play the dinosaur Tyranno. Look at top 4, discard 1, go into Fenrir. Mirage is still pending through all of this. And then it's just like Takumi Kazuchi -16. Oh, that's dead. And then I've had some opponents that are like, oh, but it's still pending. It still has to gain. I'm like, no, it's dead. It literally can't finish resolving if it's dead on board. So even being able to do that against Mirage is just like, I mean, I know that he trolls a lot, but Kelvin Trent, he's been
Oh
posting a
yeah,
lot on the
I love
on the
Kelvin.
Digimon group. But like he's like, I think that his posts recently have been like on point. Like he's been talking about how Mirage is like not that much of a threat, and people are seeing it. And like he's been like just making different memes to like compare stuff. Like I think today he made one that was like has no protection and like easy counterplay, and then he put Medieval and Mirage right next to each other, and people are like ban Mirage but keep Medieval. And so it's just like I think that Medieval is a stronger card than Mirage. Like it's only Mirage is like the reason that people are kind of fear mongering towards Mirage now is because it dominated for so many formats. But we have to think about the format that we're in and the format that we're going into. Like how strong is that card in the format that we're actually in? Like I love to say like, oh man, hit like I think Davis and Kin is on our list. Davis and Kin, I still think that that card is like super duper powerful, even going into the format that we're in. Because if you look at Japan, or you even look at America, right? People like Dan Vang, shout out to Dan, have been playing Imperial forever, and they don't ever have to stop. Since BT16, he could have literally been on Imperial this whole time. And do you know how long ago BT16 was? Like that's
Weirdo.
like 7 sets. Like
Like
that's a
BT like 3.
yeah. So it's like just crazy that like a deck can stay that relevant, and it's literally because of the tamer.
Yeah.
Literally, if you hit Davis and Kin, like it would kind of fall.
And
And I have issues being like, okay, would hitting Davis Kin to 1 kill the deck? Like, and that's against my own argument. You know what I'm saying? So I think even if they didn't have 4 Davis and Kin, like the ability to be able to, because I think people underestimate. Bandai has never done it before, but I would like to see them experiment with sometimes like doing the Yu-Gi-Oh Konami thing, where they will semi-limit things or like hit things to 2, because that will allow you to not find a card as fast. So if I have 4 Davis Kins in my deck and like 2 are in security and we're limited to 2, I'm gonna be like, ah man, you know how people do. They're like, I've drawn so many cards and I can't find my Davis Kin. If I find my Davis Kin, you'd be cooked, you know, or whatever. So it's just like if your Davis Kins are at the bottom of the deck, or if you don't have enough draw power, or you know, people are playing Blue Scramble in the deck recently, you know, foregoing they don't really use trainings or whatever. So even all their Mimboost, Jade Mimboost, Blue Mimboost, whatever, these things don't search Davis Kin. Only like the Vmon and the Wormmon do. So really like going through their deck to try to find Davis and Can, like I would like to see them experiment with hitting that card to 2. Just because I don't think there was a time where I was definitely was like hit it to 1 or get this card out of here. But I also just hate Imperial. And I hate decks that like can go through your whole security with like very little interaction from like your opponent, or like if you just have to have like a strong option card in security, and as opposed to Take, which like is already a toxic deck that you have to like pray that you have something in security to kill it. Like if you have something in security to kill Imperial, they're like, you know what time it is? Partition, baby. Partition, baby. Come back, baby. You know, and it's like sometimes that I'm like that a Pyo is swinging on me, and I'm like, please don't be a security bomb. Please don't be the security bomb that I know I play in my deck. Because I'm like, I'm gonna hit Pyo, and on their second attack, they're gonna be like, partition. I got another one, swing 2 more checks, and I'm like, cool. Well, now I'm at 1 security, or now I'm gonna lose the game because I literally can't do anything against Pyo. So with a combination of Pyo and Davis Kin, also the very important part about Davis Kin that like very few people don't mention. I think I see a lot of people mentioning like the memory gain and the playing Vmon Wormmon. That's not actually the part that I care about. It's the strip source. Because with aces in the game and like everything else, like the strip source is extremely powerful. And the fact that it doesn't just do top or bottom, like I can just choose any 3 sources on your board. I can be like strip ace from this stack, strip ace from this stack, strip ace from this stack. Cool, I'm at 10. I'm gonna kill you. So it's like even stuff like that I feel like is inherently unhealthy. So if we were talking erratas, you know, hey, Davis Kin strips bottom 3 or top 3 or whatever. So like that way your opponent at least has some counterplay to be like, how big, if I'm playing a stack deck, how big do I need to make my stack so that a Davis and Kin can't strip my ace out? Or, you know, Davis Kin can't strip the source out that I need to kill them or retaliate against them or something like that.
Okay, well, this started with Mirage.
Yeah. I don't think Mirage should be hit. I think
Gotcha,
George
yeah.
agrees, and I think Danny
I agree.
disagrees.
Yeah, I agree. Mirage shouldn't get hit only because of the fact that it's just it's it's a good card. We're not trying to just we're not trying to diminish the fact that Mirage is not a good card. Mirage is a good card. It's just we've gone so too far into advanced of the game where cards like Mirage are like from a scale of 1 to 10, they're like 6 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
They're good, but they're not like the deal breaker for blue anymore. We have way more like powerhouse cards in blue, such as like um Davis and Ken. That's a more broken blue card than Mirage is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And especially
agree.
because the fact that people can play the Davis and Ken and Virus Imperial too. It is not just restricted to. It's just
It's
it
not a
could
color
be
thing, yeah.
exactly. So Mirage can stay. Davis and Ken needs to go to 1.
Gotcha.
But yeah, outside of that, blue has been rampant. Purple has been rampant. Another card that I want to bring up is, let's see here, Biting Crush. This is a hot take,
Mm.
and I don't think many people are gonna agree with what I'm about to say. But Biting Crush is too much for this game, in a sense that being able to stop your opponent from completely playing the game and is a bad. It's bad. We don't want this. You don't want people. We don't want people to play the game. We don't want people to stop playing the game because of one card. So Binding Crush being able to stop your opponent from playing cards by card effects, because most of Digimon is playing by card effects, and because play this because I can play this and play this. It's like almost pseudo Yu-Gi-Oh for special summon, special summon, special summon. That's where Digimon's going to, and that's where it's kind of progressed to. So having a card that shuts down your opponent's entire gameplay is not healthy for future decks, current decks, and just in general. And some people might disagree with Binding Crush, but Leviamon X are great cards. Don't get me wrong; they're super strong, but they aren't the issue. When we're talking strictly like banless and limitless, we're talking about the cards that actually are the issues. And I believe Binding Crush is the issue card when it comes to that engine in a whole. And we have seen demon lords like Mr. Burrito over here, and other players. Shout out to other players that done really well with demon lords and won regionals and won nats. Like demon lords is a people just don't know how to play around demon lords, which is why it performs really well. But also,
Agreed.
there's a lot of sleeper like cards in Demon Lords that also prohibits your opponent from playing the game. Hence, like Biting Crush. That's why Demon Lords can compete because they have access to those kind of cards, which is why I rest my case with Biting Crush.
I think that on the flip end of that, I mean, obviously I qualified for Nats last year using Levia. So I think that I'm gonna say that I disagree with the Biting Crush hit just because they need like Demon Lords without Biting Crush. It feels like most decks like I could use Purple Syndrome Puppet Rush and I'll stomp Demon Lords if they don't have Biting Crush. Like they need Biting Crush to be able to keep the smaller decks because like when they created Demon Lords, right? It plays very much so like Royal Knights or Mega Zoo. You're playing, one big body card every turn for the most part. You might have a couple turns where your opponent is insane and gives you like a ton of memory and you can like do two things instead of one thing. But if that one thing that you do is play Biting Crush and drop a Levia, not to mention how many times I played Demon Lords and you have to drop Levia. Like there's been plenty of, Demon Lord games where I like am like, oh man, I have Biting Crush and I can trigger it. I can put it in delay. But like, do I have a Levia? No, I gotta wait till I see one. Or I mean, like, Burrito, do you agree with that? Or I
I
feel like I don't always have Levia when I Biting Crush, but
yeah.
even when I'm playing Levia like standard, like it feels maybe if I would say yes if you guys have seen the new Galacticmon reveal card. So like if they had a Levia that was like when digivolving, use Biting Crush. All right, man, get Biting Crush up out of here.
Yeah,
Like they're playing it for free. That's crazy. But like it's just like having to play for 8, like a lot of times like so Biting Crush has been like a relevant card, I'll say, since EX5 last year's Nats. A lot of people were not really, paying the proper respects to Biting Crush, during that time. And when Anubis was around and it was like getting a lot of people, clapped up or whatever. I decided to play Fenrir, like regular BVT14 Fenrir into that Nats that year. So I obviously was like, damn, once Biting Crush is on the board, I literally can't play the game because I have to make Fenrir, and then once I do Fenrir, they are gonna Biting Crush. So that's a solid point. But all the other decks that did well during that format or like got to the top, like they just didn't care about Biting Crush. So it's like, do we hit Biting Crush and inhibit these specific decks so that these other decks that don't care can like rise up, past the Biting Crush, because inherently whenever you do a ban list, you give it's like playing League of Legends or any other MOBA game if you guys have ever played MOBAs. But like when they hit something, like let's say that there's um a character in a game that like I main a character, but like man, the character that's really good right now just shits on my character. Like my character would be so good if there wasn't this one character. Then they like nerf that character. My character is one of the best characters in the game now. Like I actually don't care about all the other characters, and it's like people are like, "Whoa, I didn't even know that guy was good." It's like, yeah, he was being held down by I don't know,
Biting Crush.
like Imperial the whole time. So there's like tons of like decks that are held down by Imperial and can't do anything. So if Davis and Ken went to one, it's like we would start seeing all these sleeper decks that are being like basically Imperial's like, hold him back, hold him back. I'm like, hold him back. And so it's like once you hit like Davis and Kinder, like release the floodgates. Everybody come through. It's Doctor Strange, No Way Home, Spider-Man. Like they're all coming through. I can't stop them, type thing. And so I think that when we talk about like limits and stuff like that, Biting Crush is a very solid card. I was gonna go from pivot for a second and pivot from our Mirage conversation to Kyo and Sayo because I believe that like Danny mentioned Mirage because of Galaxy. As a person that's played Galaxy a lot, I do feel like the Galaxy engine is overtuned and broken, and I wouldn't put it past Bandai to hit Kyo and Sayo because they're very known for hitting cards that are outside of what they intended the gameplay to be for said card. So obviously they did not intend for you to be able to like tap Kyo and Sayo, put a level 4 at the bottom, and then Digivolve for free from a level 7 or a level 6 to a level 7, and then go crazy. Even the same way with like a level 6. That was just something that like the players kind of discovered and like, hey, Bandai, that is what it says on the card. So like, it does say I could do that because it doesn't say, it's not locked by trait or anything like that. But that would be a card that I could see getting errata'd to into a Galaxy trait card. Just so that because they already are kind of hit a lot of the or they already kind of pivot to hitting certain Galaxy tools. Galaxy is already in a way on the ban list because of their choice restriction with the loop. So it's just like because they keep finding problems with the Galaxy cards, I believe they made them way too generic. And so that allows you to like even, red Galaxy is a thing now where people are playing, just the red version of the deck instead of the blue top in, and they're playing, protoforms in their deck to go into Gallon X, or they're playing the Dragon Links cards. That version is like I feel like truly unfair, where you go into Volcanic Dramon, and Volcanic Dramon like prevents you from moving up and you're raising, and then the next turn they're like, hey, I'll just do it again. I'll just create another Volcanic Dramon. And if you ever play a big option or you try to remove me because it says when I would leave battle area, I'll just play Metallic. And then when Metallic leaves, I'll just play Volcanic again. And it's like this constant. Now they do have a small weakness in the way that like one comes from hand, one comes from trash. So if you're like a bouncing deck or if you're like a bottom decking deck, like there is going to be a time where they have to stop doing that. But by the time they stop doing that, they might kill you. But I'm gonna say that I don't want Kill and Sayo to be hit either because I think that the current Galaxy they only build one boss monster a turn. And I feel like if we're thinking about like Royal Knights, Imperial Virus, all of those can very easily deal with whatever, gets put out because Imperial Virus will trash top if they make a Hexablow, for example. I think Hexablow is a lot more dangerous in Imperial because I hate killing a Hexablow that has partition and then it just splits into two bodies. And those two bodies are going to be used to kill me. And Hexablow, the way that you killed Hexablow, probably past turn. So like in Purple Hybrid, you're probably going to have to like Rivals Barrage a Hexablow with like a whole bunch of sources from Imperial. Now, you do have a whole bunch of sources in Galaxy, but nothing has protection ever when you make it with Galaxy. So it's like if you're able to, and also that in between turn for the Galaxy player just feels like quite awful, like terrible. Actually, you can't really like do anything if your opponent wipes your board and you're in a position to take game, and they don't have a rookie, they're hatching on that next turn, and they're just going Sunmon here. Like they can't really do anything because their Sunmon egg is super quintessential for the deck. So they would have to like play out a Luna, pop a Min boost if they have it, go from Luna to the level 4, shove it under. But they're still doing all this, and they won't be able to have enough sources to do the level 5 for 1. So they'll have to Digivolve to the level 5 for 3. So it's just like a lot of stuff like that that like they have to do way too much to stay in the game. So that's why I think that Kill and Sayo should not be hit, in my opinion. Um,
So
Hot
we
take,
went
I
from
feel like because people hate that deck, but
we went from Biting Crush to Coincido. Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
hmm sure.
I'm immediately judging you.
I think that's an interesting take that I haven't considered, but if they were going to hit Royal Knights and Demon Lords because they think that those decks are problems, I think that those are solid hits because it doesn't take away from their win con. It will slow them down and not allow them to do certain stuff to play the game in between. I actually thought you were gonna say Lucemon Chaos Mode because I feel like that card is ridiculous for Demon Lords, but
Absolutely.
it's like the reason that Lucemon Chaos Mode is not ridiculous in Lucemon. I mean, I'm sure me and George have tried into the ground to make that deck work, but like that deck's just not good because it's too expensive. It's too cost heavy.
Yeah.
So like your opponent will like smack you.
I don't know what we're doing wrong over here, bro. What are we doing wrong? Bro,
Yeah,
I gotta play some
I don't know
Michigan
how because
originals.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie because whenever I see my opponent like go hatch QP, Digimon for 5 to Lucy, I'm like, all right, I'm about to clean up. Like it's just there's not enough things
Feels
that you can
so
do.
bad, man.
Yeah, like there's not enough stuff that you can do to like really keep Lucy good. And it's crazy because Lucy is a very recent deck. Like Satan mode being a secret was like Bandai's intention was like, hey, this deck's gonna be strong, or this deck's gonna be at least playable, but like it's not. So there are things that like I'm sure Bandai, when they put out cards, they're obviously reading them and trying to future proof them as much as possible. But that's why banlist exists and stuff like that because they can't catch every mistake. Like they can't catch the Kyosayos, So like I said, I don't want Kyosayo to get hit, but I wouldn't be surprised if like it came up and like Kyosayo's at one. I'm like, all right, man, they live their time. Like while I don't think that it is directly a card like out of all the cards that we've talked about on this list, it is directly a card that works in a way that Bandai did not intend. Every other card printed, Biting Crush, like all these cards are supposed to do what they do, but Kill and Sayo was never supposed to do what it does. I also think that I think I mentioned this shortly earlier, but how do you guys feel about BT14 Balmon? Because that is my number one hit card. I just think that Take is a very uninteractive deck. There is very little that you can do, like unless we had a floodgate literally that says your opponent can't discard cards. like there's nothing that can if you put a floodgate on board, they'll kill it. If you put a Ghazi on board, anything like that, they'll kill it. There's no counterplay that you can do against a Take player to prevent them from killing you outside of those two security that are in the middle of your security when they are swinging for game. So I think that is just like inherently very unhealthy for the game state in general. Like I think OTK decks, if there are going to be OTK decks, just like previous Digimon, they need to have the weakness of the OTK deck player needs to think like, damn, what if I hit a security bomb? My turn's over. Like I think that still needs to exist, but it's like even for Take, if you like now the more experienced Take players have set up their board in such a way where like if their big Take dies, boom, you're gonna trigger Soul Luga. Soul Luga goes in a Fender for free, play another Kazuchi, boom, I'm right back in the Take, baby. Like it doesn't even matter. Like don't even worry about it. I'm still gonna kill you this turn. So it's like even that is like an inherently very unhealthy. Especially with the new cards they got as well. Like the new cards only made it better. The new Dual Tamer, like only made it more incredible. The new Luga only made it more incredible. So when I was seeing us, because they revealed these cards when we were all at Nats, and so I was actually thinking, okay, they're revealing these cards because I thought it was insane. Like when they announced BT20 and they were like, hey, Take is getting more support. I was like, no way. I was like, this deck is already crazy OD. But like, and I even said like in my group, I was like, what can they even give them that's better? I was seeing every card get revealed. I was like, this is not better than what they have right now. So I'm like, it makes it better, yeah, but like, how is it better than what they have right now? So to me, that screams like, okay, we're trying to release a new strategy for the deck, but in order to do that, we need to make sure that there's cards out for the deck to still survive when we hit this card. So I feel like BT14 Balmon has to be on the chopping block. If it's not, I'm heavily questioning all of Bandai's banlist decisions. Like I don't care what's on there. But yeah, I think that that's good. I see Ruin Mode on this list. Do you guys want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask Danny G. How long have we been recording so far?
Oh yeah, I don't even know.
All right. Do you want to just speed run these last few ones?
We can do that.
So
Okay.
Magna X, Uko, Analog, Ruin Mode, Magna X. George, give it to us. Magna X. What should get hit?
All right. I'm sorry, Vmon players out there, but Magna X needs to get hit to 1. I'm not saying ban the card. I'm not saying, just completely kill the deck. Because again, Magna X tops, but it is not like a top 4 or top 2 like a champion deck. It's a floodgate deck, but it also doesn't have as much tops and representation. So we're gonna keep Magna X to 1, and here's why. Again, we want to make sure that players can interact with each other. If you have a 15, a 17, a 20k, it becomes bigger. A big card that says you cannot interact with me and I just double block, you can't play the game. So Magna X needs to get hit to 1, especially because of the fact that there's also no recursion in Vmon and the armor deck that brings back Magna to hand that I'm aware of. So Magna X needs to get hit to 1 for sure, because that card is a problem. That card it cannot belong as 4, especially because of the fact that it just stops your opponent from being able to interact, and that's not healthy for the game at all. We're trying to have like longevity, and having decks like that where it just promotes toxic behavior. Like I don't know what else to explain it.
I 100% agree with his take on it. Does anyone disagree?
I disagree.
Right? That's all right.
I think here's no, and I think I try to back up all my points with logic or data that I
Yeah.
give or whatever. But here's my thing about Magna. Actually, right before we got on this call, that's the deck that I was playing. But I was just trying into this format just to see how it would work with some of the new stuff or whatever. But I have a very different take on Magna just because Bandai has recently released so many cards that because if we're worried about cards that are immune or can't be interacted with, we should also hit Ragna Ace. We should also hit Gallant X or Gallant, stuff like that. Now I understand that you're saying it's uninteractable at all, but it is a very big weakness of Magna that they have to hit security with all of the aces and stuff like that you have to go through, because no longer are Magna players really running like Niaramon, which would allow them to like when attacking trash the top security to become immune mid attack so that they can't be affected. So there are like things like, for example, when I went to Nats and I was dealing with Magna X, it was an auto win because I was playing bunnies and I would just drop Cherubi Ace and I give them minus DP until their turn. So going over into their turn, they'll die. And even to the point where like if they're playing like aces like Zudo Ace and that's underneath Magna X, they'll actually just skip whole turn to you. Because the way that will play out is like let's say I play Cherubi Ace for 7 and I'm at 5, I put them into 2. If they don't have a memory setter, because the only thing that stops this interaction is a memory setter, we're like in between the turn, they'll die, they'll lose the 3 memory from overflow, and then your turn will begin. Now, the only way that gets stopped is that start of turn, a memory setter triggers at the same time. So when they lose the memory and skip the turn back to you, now even though the memory is on your turn, they will memory set back to 3. So I think that that's like a very strong weakness. Also, we have cards like Alpha or You Can Ace that just dropped right now. So like Royal Knights just doesn't care about Magna X, because every single time that you make a Magna X, you'll go through all this effort and they'll be like, yeah, I'll play this Alpha or You Can Ace for 1, minus 15 to Magna until the end of your turn. End of the turn, crossing over, they die, and then they can't really do anything. So both the Alpha deck and Royal Knights, being one of the strongest contenders, have access to that as well. And then part of what makes the Magna deck strong as well is being able to like hit the Magna out of security and Digivolve if you have a Vmon, or being able to play the 3-cost Davis and play a Vmon. Like those get stopped by Virus Imperial, just like point blank period. Like they won't really be able to hit a security that matters. So I think that them keeping at 4, on top of the fact that Bandai just released that they're giving us a new Magnamon very soon, I don't think that they'll hit that deck's biggest ace card. And not ace like the mechanic, but like ace like its most powerful card. And that's just because I think it's too hard. Like even when you have decks that are Like it's more a more recent ruling, but when you have cards that are saying give a Digimon this player has to attack start of main. So let's think Exa, for example. When Exa has a Slayer Dramon on board, because that's a newer deck that we're talking about. If you're sitting across the table from Magna and you're like, hey, start of main, suspend Slayer, make you swing with Magna. Even if they're immune somehow, like even at start of turn, if they, slap security or whatever, they still have to attack because the effect that is saying attack affects the player and not the Digimon. So they will still have to swing with the Magna X, meaning that you can still use whatever ace you were intending on using, Exa ace, Takami Kazuchi ace with a blocker, 16k, anything like that, and just block the Magna and force an armor purge. So I think that there is a lot of counterplay to it. It's just it might not be in the decks that we're playing against it. You know what I'm saying? At that given time. So we might be like, hey, this is fucking ridiculous. But it's like other decks just deal with it for free. So I believe that when decks are in the format that check decks like that, like they can't just get hit. Like I feel like a deck that deserves to get hit is dealing well across the board against everything. And this is why, like, okay, we need to hit this because this is too ridiculous. Everybody's able to just, do this, and it really has there's no slap in the face to it,
Yeah, for me to keep
So
my point short and simple, I just have an issue with effects that say unaffected by your opponent's effects. Just
hmm
all the effects I have an issue with. I think when you limit it to like opponent's Digimon effects, to me that's like the fairest way, because it's like even though most control effects are Digimon effects nowadays, you still have that one out of like, oh, an option, the one of the options I run in my deck here. So like that's for me, that's my
hmm
only issue with Magna X.
Mm-hmm. And having niche scenarios where you DP reduce. Not every deck is a yellow deck, so they don't have access to DP reduce until the end of the opponent's turn. And and to Brito's point, you can be playing an option heavy deck, and guess what? You can't hit it because it's unaffected by all effects. So it's bad game design, and um that's why, because the point of other decks is to have like the strengths, right? Yellow has DP reduction, black has De-Digivolve, purple has destruction. Each color has its own mechanic, and being able to stop every single color's mechanic as a whole is bad game design in my opinion, and should not stay in the game. So that's just my 2 cents.
So
yeah, I think
we're not getting Nume X back, Danny G.
yeah,
Let it go.
we're not. But I think okay, so screaming. Well, to your point, George, I'll counter by saying that like I feel like it's not just DP reduction that can hurt Magna. Purple's Retail can put in work.
Yeah.
There's even the new Ghost deck has blockers with Retail. Like Magna actually has to work to kill, like to remove single color bodies because their main form of removal is going to be the starter deck Magna that removes multicolor cards by stripping their sources. So if you can't strip the Retail source over and they have blocker, you're gonna have to work very hard to get over that, or you're gonna have to blinding ray preemptively, get your immunity, and you only get one swing. So I mean, like purple can do it, black can do it by like walling you out with blockers and de-digivolving you. On attack, green can prevent you from unsuspending, so the Magna player has to play careful because if you suspend their whole board, guess what? At the beginning of their turn, they're not immune anymore. Magna can't unsuspend unless they have access to a blinding ray. So by the logic of what everything else we've been talking about, if they hit blinding ray, then they don't need to hit Magna at all. Because that's the one card that prevents them from getting out of all of the nonsense scenarios that they get put in. Is like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna swing here. I got blocked. Blinding ray. Boom, I'm back up, baby. Or hey, I'm gonna die on swing, or I don't know how to get around their ace. Blinding ray. I'm gonna swing, and then I'm gonna go into OmniX or something like that. So like, if they do hit blinding ray, or if they just choice restrict Magna X and blinding ray together, that would solve both what you guys are talking about and what I'm talking about the other decks that use Blinding Ray not losing Blinding Ray, but then they're keeping it in check with Magna. So that's something that I just actually thought about on the fly, but a choice restrict with Blinding Ray and Magna X would actually be pretty good.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I can get behind that. All right, so when it comes to Magna X, we're a little bit split here, which is totally fine. It's just not a big deal.
Yeah, just to be
Yeah, it's still a problem card regardless, but
Yeah. So we have a few left. does anyone want to mention any cards they want to talk about specifically?
Since the new deck that just got released in this format, we'll put it out there. The elephant in the room. Ruin Mode Loop with Talmon. Some people are split on which cards to be hit. Some people say Talmon Ace. Some people also say the Ruin Mode itself. I don't know what you guys' opinions are on the matter of the fact. I like being straight to the point. For me, I don't like to beat around the bush. Um, so for me, Ruin Mode's the issue. Ruin Mode should get hit. So Ruin Mode needs to get hit to 1. It promotes unfair gameplay, being able to stop your opponent from raising. And if you do Ruin Mode like twice, or like Ruin Mode and then one attacking same turn, minus 10k, most decks don't have any answers to that at all. And so Ruin Mode is blatantly the issue. So I believe Rumo should hit to 1, only because of the fact that if you like, I don't want to say like ban Rumo or like ban Talmon, but Rumo to 1 makes it to where if you still want to play that Talmon loop deck, you have to commit more resources to return the Rumo back to your hands. And that's why with the hindering of Jack Raid as well included in this list, it stops being able to get free ruin modes back to your hand. Because if you just go, for example, ruin mode and play Matt Ishida, like Jack Raid, and then Matt Ishida, and then like ruin mode to hand and ruin mode again or whatever, then that's too much. Or calling, but yeah. So to the point, ruin mode should be hit to 1.
Yep. I
Uh,
go for
I
it. Go for
think
it, Josh.
okay. I was just gonna say from a deck that I'm playing right now, I cannot, I will not on this video like tell the details of this deck that I've been playing. That's absolutely ridiculous. But I feel like the problem is not Ruin Mode. Definitely, if they were gonna hit a card in that deck, hit Sakuya Ace. Here's the reason why. Ruin Mode is way too easily recurred. Even if I had it at 1, I would not care. I promise. I promise. I promise I'm being so real when I say that. Because new Tau Loop, or even like decks that use the Sakuya engine in general, are using Valder Arm now as well. So you switch from the Ruin Mode problem to the Valder problem, and Valder can be low key like better, or a way worse problem for a lot of these decks that are out. So I do think that, like, as far as if we're trying to hit Tau Loop as a thing, I would say the Tau Ace itself is the starter combo piece that starts everything, and that would get hit. That way, other decks that use Ruin Mode don't have to get hit, and then the deck that you would be hitting Ruin Mode for might not even affect it in the long run. You know, um, it does seem like the problem card because yeah, it does -10, but you have to think about like what gets it to that point. What makes them make Ruin Mode so easily? They might hit Kazuha, they might hit, or they might choice restrict like Tau Ace and Ruin Mode. That could be a thing as well. So that would be like a thing where like a lot more choice restricts comes into play. And I wish I could talk about this deck that I've been playing, but
For another
like
video, for another video.
Ruin Mode's not the problem. Yeah, I will rest my case by saying I don't feel like Ruin Mode's the problem of that deck. It should definitely be Tau if something has to go.
I I could see like I could see ruin mode being a problem. Again, I'm a little biased since like I run decks that don't really care about getting ruin moded.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact, in some situations I prefer it so I can easily do on deletion effects, but that's regardless. I think hitting it to 1, I think would be okay, mostly because it's like it takes away from the decks that try to abuse it and run it multiple copies like Talmon Loop, but while still giving decks that like already play it at 1, like it won't affect them. Like for example, I like playing Ruin Mode in Beals. I only run it as a 1 of. It's not going to affect me at all, but it will affect the decks that try to abuse it. So I can understand the point of to try to like limit it and limit at 1. I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to get at because purple needs access to a level 7 that um well does it does stop your opponent from playing the game. Um, but also on the flip side, there's also decks that abuse Ruin Mode, like Tom on Ace, in the deck itself. So
Yeah. So I think for this one we're like split 50-50, which is I think it's pretty cool.
yeah, okay. Well, there was one more you said, right? That was on the list that we haven't talked about.
I think Uko and Analog Youth were on there. I'm just gonna step forward and say I don't think they should be get hit, but I'll give you guys, if you guys want to give opinions on that. I know people hate Uko in general. Like they hate any card that says Ukomon on it. So I think that Ukomon BT16 gives every deck that uses it like playable.
From a standpoint of game design and power creep, I think Analog Youth and slash Uko are, yes, they help majority of decks speed up like the game, but they're so like they're blanket cards, like they can be used in any deck.
Mm-hmm.
So if Bandai was trying to slow the game down, which I don't see them doing, then yeah, you would hit Uko and Analog Youth. But with all these new releases of the cards and power creep being an issue, um, while Uko and Analog Youth do speed up majority of decks to where is most decks are just faster with them, uh, if in the sense that if Bandai wanted to slow everything down, those would be hit. I wouldn't necessarily call them problem cards. I call them more like consistency cards. Um, but I don't see Bandai hitting them at all. Because they'll just print more cards that do the same thing as Analog and Nuko, but better. That all they're doing is printing better and better cards. We don't see worse cards. So with that case, yeah, it makes sense. I don't see. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, George. I was just gonna say from a Uko standpoint, I think that most of the decks that run it for consistency, and you're actually sacrificing your egg. So like a lot of decks like now are using their egg as like a quintessential thing, that they do. Like not a lot of them are like having generic eggs that can be used outside of their stack. So it's like you're sacrificing your egg when you go Uko for one. You're also passing turn to your opponent. Like I think about it all the time. I think it's hilarious when like I'm playing Royal Knights and people are like, Uko, pass you to one. I'm like, another turn where I can flip Drazel? Like here, you're putting me, faster to my mid game, like without me having to really do anything to you for it, and I'm not getting rushed down. It's fine. Um, I think that, like Danny said, there are less decks that run it, and the decks that run it now like need it for consistency. I mean, like the main deck that I think about Uko in is Fenrir. Like if Fenrir is going to lose, it's because they bricked. And like I don't think that that's a solid win con for like if a deck, best case scenario has its best case scenario all the time and they do not break, they slap you up and they win automatically. It's like that's not healthy. But I think that people just have problems with Uko because it's like a lingering hatred. It's the same as Mirage, literally the exact same Mirage. Like their brain is stuck in a previous format where they're like, I just hate these cards just to hate them. These cards are stupid. I don't like it. They should have hit all the Ukos. Like, because there was people on the last ban list that were like, hit both Ukos to 0, hit both Ukos to 1. I'm like, bro, like. They can't do that. Like it's not,
Like who hurt you?
and right, exactly. And I think yeah, like Uko heard him, but I was just like, even from a standpoint of like, I felt kind of bad for the people who were like, man, I've been working, a couple sets to make big Uko work. Now with promo Uko hit the one, and they only have 5 Ukos, like they're never gonna do that. Like that deck's never gonna be a thing. Bandai had to hit it to like affect everything else, and in hitting it, like they turn that deck off forever unless they print more Ukos. So, and if they print more Ukos, they have to be extremely careful about card design and how they do so, or all of these rush decks that played Uko will just come back. So, um, I think it's definitely a double-edged sword, and people think that it should get hit, but I don't agree. I think if you guys want to wrap up by saying like your final, maybe like top 5 hit cards, I'll say mine is in order BT14 Balmon. Um, and for me personally, I don't have anything that I believe needs to get hit beyond that point, but I will throw honorable mentions of Kyo, Sayo, Davis, Kin, um, Blinding Ray, and Jack Raid. Those
Yeah,
are
you're
going to be
taking
my
all mine.
5. Yeah, those are going to be my exact 5.
Make Greymon great again.
Just in time for Adventure and Greymon decks coming back. Oh, go the promo Grand Quagga. I agree.
Points. Valid points. I can respect that.
Now, what do you say? What do you say to Grand Quagga building the same way that it used to? Because I've had talks with Japanese players about this, but as soon as imagine Grand Quagga comes off the banning list, they build the same way that they used to. They move up, they Digiverse, they gain all of their Sec Plus, and then they use a training to go into help me out here. But
Quartz?
is it Grand Quagga?
Grandis?
No. The Grandis.
Grandis.
So like Grandis still sees play in Japan and it's still very good. Like they're just lacking like that extra oomph, and that could be what they need because it can digivolve over level 6. You know what I mean? So
Maybe.
is Grandis immune to Digimon effects only? Right?
It's not immune at all.
Not me at all.
It just gets really
Am I
big
thinking of
and
the wrong card?
swings.
Yeah, Grandis becomes huge and
I think you're
swings.
thinking of Tyrant commentary.
Tyrant. That's what I'm talking about. Tyrant. Okay. Yeah. So I'm talking about Tyrant can go over a level 6, and Tyrant is immune to what Digimon effects
Yes, when
when
it's
suspended. Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
So I mean I think that's something to think about, but
Yeah. All right.
small take.
All right. I think for me, my top 5 would be I guess all the memory ones. I guess I guess Jack Raid number 1, Gravity Crush, Binding Ray. I don't know how to put those in order, but and then after Magna X, just because I strongly dislike the unaffected by effects effect, and I don't know what I'd put for like my 4th one, because like all the other ones, I just for me they're like kind of like meh. Again, because I'm biased. I have my one way of viewing the game, and it's not going to change anytime soon.
Okay. Funny enough, mine is very similar to Brito. Crazy, because we're pro players, crazy. Um, but yeah, definitely the options, the zero cost options, for future game design, need to be limited. Um, Shannon Davis is a huge issue. Especially because I don't see them stopping. Like they're gonna continue printing Imperial support. Like Vmon
Yep.
is Digimon's like love child. We know that. So Gannon Davis needs to either one of two things. Like Josh mentioned, either get a errata where it's just either top or bottom, or completely restrict it. Um, and then I guess my 5th card would probably be Magna X as well, only because of the fact that being unaffected by all effects is terrible game design, and I don't know what they were thinking when they printed that card. Because if they don't hit this card, all they're doing is they're promoting future cards to be printed the same way as Magna X. Oh, we printed Magna X and we didn't hit it because it wasn't an issue. We just continue printing the same cards with unaffected by card effects. So they're not hitting the issue. The issue is unaffected by card effects. Period. So they're gonna continue doing that because they don't see it as an issue, which it clearly is an issue, because it stops other decks from interacting with it. But again, there's times where you can digivolve it or you can DP reduce it. There's like you have strategies to deal with it, but
In a
sometimes
perfect
you don't
game,
have those cards. Sometimes you just don't have it, and then if again we're playing a TCG here, you gotta draw the cards, you gotta see the cards. If you don't see the answer to those, and you play 4, so let's say what stops your opponent from having 3 Magna X on the field? What can you do? You can't do squat. So
game
it
2.
just you, you know. So that's just
I
my
think
gripe.
that I think that I won't say that it promotes them creating more cards like Magna X because, contrary to popular belief, I do think they learned from printing Magna X. Because if you look at BT 16, it was C16, right? That Magna
Yeah,
X came out,
yeah.
I think. So if you look at past 16, every card that has immunity after has some kind of glaring weakness, some kind of chink in the armor. They didn't make any other card immune to all effects. And that was to me like Bandai being like, okay, like we realized we may have jumped the wagon here. We have gone too hard or too strong. So I do think they learned. And I do want to give them the benefit of the doubt on that and say that they're not, their design team is not actively promoting more cards like Magna X. If anything, it seems to be they're kind of switching gears more so to more cards that are like, when would leave battle area. We seem to be getting a lot more of those cards, and a lot more like protection effects like those, which I heavily support because I like mechanics like that. I like things that allow you to react on your opponent's turn and stuff like that without it being like hand trappy like Yu-Gi-Oh.
Correct.
I'm looking at a little ban list thing here that I had pulled up on my phone. Cards that we forgot, but I just want to shortly mention that I don't agree with any of these hits, but I know that a lot of people do, so I didn't want them to think that we didn't cover them. Protoform, it's fine. Right? It's a resource material for X-Antibody decks. I think it's fine. Doesn't need to get hit. Shoto Mother, fine. For some reason, people are talking about a Goonie and Lobo promo, fine. War Girl X from the new set from EX8, fine. Medieval, fine.
Wow.
Stingmon and XVmon from BT12. Now, if they don't hit Davis Ken, that would be my next choice.
Yeah.
It won't really like neuter Imperial the way that Davis Ken hit would, but it would. There are a lot of times where I'm like, oh man, like they're gaining so much memory from over and over and over, or they would pass turn jawgressing into Pail without having those two cards. So I do think if those cards went to one, they do have to play some different XVs, and that also I don't even think there's enough XVs with jamming inherit for if that XV gets hit for them to have jamming all the way across the board every time that they make DNA. So I do think that the XV stronger than the Stingmon. If they're going to hit one or the other, hitting the XV would be prominent. But I think that was something that I saw that I was like, okay, that's fair. If they don't hit Davis Ken, XV Sting could be.
That partition is more of an issue than hitting the consistency of the deck. Because being able to just reoccur your resources and just DNA and do multiple swings, again, all because you get punished by playing cards in your deck. So being punished by hitting a security bomb because you place options to deal with other threats is not healthy game design at all. So I would argue that partition is more of an issue as well. Davison Kent obviously is the first and prominent issue. Then it'll be partition. Then it'll be like the consistency, like
No,
deconsistency.
when you say partition, are you talking about BT16 Pail taking a hit specifically?
Correct. I
Okay.
am.
And I also think BT16 Payo has an incredible when digivolving effect. Like stops
being
most
able to-
restanding decks across the board from being able to suspend an entire board due to Davis and Kin, source strip, and then they can't unsuspend anything. Like that's another thing that when Magna X sits across the table from it, they have to contest that because if Magna X is already suspended, they're gonna be stunned down with Pail. So that's kind of a thing too. And then when you throw in BT16 Dragon mode and their pseudo Ace effect, of when you Digivolve, or their pseudo Biting Crush effect, sorry, of how Digivolve or played by effect, boom, I just go into fighter mode. Either fighter mode, and I don't get punished for it at all. I'll bounce your whole deck, or I'll bounce your whole field to your hand, or your bottom deck, or or I'll bounce the main problem card that you have to bottom deck with fighter mode Ace. Like that kind of stuff is really incredible with combined with all the tools that they have now.
And there's already enough, there's already enough level 5s that Blue Green has access to where, yeah, they lose the partition pale, but there's also a lot of more choices that they can choose from. So like, there's plenty of level 5s they can play. So yeah,
Sure.
that's just what my opinion, my own opinion. Sorry, Vimon players, we don't mean to.
No, I agree.
We don't mean to hate on y'all, but y'all have some broken
I
cards.
hate you all. I'm kidding. No,
They're like it's fine. You hit one, I'll keep the other. They're like you'll never keep me down.
Oh, BT22, another Vmon.
Right.
All right, I
Oh
think
my lord.
we're done here. We got all our thoughts out. Danny G, you wanna do the outro?
Yes, sir.